Finally ready to start this thing. I just put just enough on it to get it started, and I got to compete with the other sailing channels, so I got to make this dramatic. How do we make this dramatic? All right, guys, we don't know what's going to happen. It could explode. Okay, not really. It's probably just going to start, or it's not going to start. But I could throw a rod, right? The rod?
Anything could happen.
Anything could happen. All right.
I'm Brian. Join the adventures as I share what I learned restoring a hurricane-damaged catamaran with the dream to sail the world.
First thing you got to do is check your oil. Oh, no oil. Let's see what the problem is. Oh, never mind. What kind of dipstick would make a joke like that?
Some people look at this and just see a pile of rusted metal and rusty bolts. But what I see is a beautiful engine that's going to take me around the world on my boat. And so what's the difference? Well, you have to have that vision to put things back together. And that's where I found my life lately. I needed that same vision. And in order to do that, you kind of have to take things apart in order to put them back together. If you remember back from the first video in this series, we did the bottom part of the engine, and now we're going to do the top part of the engine, and we're going to put this thing together.
Valve grinding compound. Just like honing, you don't want to do this too much, because you're just essentially putting wear on your engine. Look at a nice polished surface all the way around.
It's incredibly important that you wash the engine really good after using valve grinding compound, because that grit, if that gets in their engine, that will cause big problems.
What's really critical with your head gasket is you see how close all the water jacket is to your oil jacket, to the compression right across here. Pretty strong to push through there, so it's really important that your head gasket seals. And so if you ever have water in your oil, it might mean that one of these jackets is leaking into here. If you ever start making water, meaning it starts blowing the water out, it's probably because your compression is going into one of the water jackets, and as it explodes, it just forces air into the water jacket and it starts boiling out. And that's pretty common stuff when your head gasket is blown. When I was in high school, I had a friend, he had a blown head gasket in his pickup truck, and so it was going to cost a lot of money for him to change it. So I said, oh, I'll help you do it. You can come do it at the shop where I work. So he brought it in, he pulled it off. I was kind of show him how to do it. He was doing the work. I think I went to dinner or something. I came back, and he already had the head gasket on and was putting it back together. Well, needless to say, when he got done, started it up, it was smoking like crazy. If you don't clean off the surface perfectly clean, any chunk of old gasket, like even the slightest, can sometimes cause it to leak. Before you put your head on, you need to make sure you put the lifters back in. Assembly lube on these things, little on the bottom. This is where this rides on that lobe and pushes up and down on the camshaft. You can't really reuse a head gasket. Once you put it on and once you torque the head down, if you screwed up, forgot the lifters, you open it back up, you got to put a new head gasket in it. So, inspect for damage. That's pretty darn good. If you line it carefully, it will just set right in.
The nice thing nowadays with the internet is all the service manuals for these engines are online, so you can get the torque specs as well as the order to torque the bolts all online. And it's important to follow that so that the head will sit on there straight. Just be absolutely sure before you put that head on that you have everything in there that you need and that it's perfectly clean, because once you put it on, you don't want to take it off, not without replacing that head gasket. And that's, I think it's like 60 bucks or 100 bucks, so it's not cheap.
All right, now that I've got my head on straight, it's time to give up boat work. Oh, well, maybe not. I mean, it's time to put the rest of the covers on this thing and get it buttoned up. All right. There's a lot happening under this cover, and it's really important that you don't miss anything. Those gears have little alignment marks that have to be lined up. Also, the timing gear on the injection pump can be slightly off. In fact, in the manual it says don't take it apart, and I took it apart. So you have to retime your injection if you do that. There's also some little O-rings for the oil that have to be correct in there. And one of the things you might notice is I'm always going and wire wheeling all the parts. Here are push rods. And what they do is they open and close the valves. So as we assemble, we put a little bit of grease on these guys. And here again, if I take apart an engine, if I was the one to take it apart, I keep these in order. But being as there's no real wear pattern on this yet, they were just randomly pulled apart. You can just put them anywhere because they're all the same on this engine. Some engines have different sizes for the exhaust and the intake, I think. Okay. It's important to clean your parts right before you put them together because, you know, in a shop like this, everything just collects dirt and dust. You don't want dirt inside your engine. So guys, go around there like that. So it just provides like a little bearing surface on top of your valve. This guy is your rocker arms. So they go on, how do they go on? Like this. You have to make sure you get these things into here. Tighten this down nice and easy so you don't bend it. These are the injectors. What there are is there's a little tiny hole in there, so it shoots the fuel high pressure into here and sprays it out into the cylinder. And one of the things that you can do when you clean stuff out with an air compressor is don't blow in the hole like this. Blow across it. It creates a vacuum in there and pulls the stuff out as opposed to just blowing it deeper in. Yeah, you can see it just even pull the fuel that's left in there out. Is down in this hole where the injector goes, there's a little copper washer. You want to make sure that thing is in there. I usually try to use the torque specs from the manual, but even though this is a Japanese engine, my friend told me you can use the German torque specs on it, which is guten tight. The next thing we want to put on is this low pressure return, but before you put that on, you have to put these little copper seals on there. So, and they've got little holes in them. Neighbors. Blowing off fireworks makes the building sound like it's gonna fall apart. So I think next door they're blowing fireworks because they are celebrating Monday. Today is Monday. And that's what they're celebrating today. Well, I only have 2 nuts, but I need 3. It's right here. The next thing is the main fuel injection lines. Because it's a high pressure diesel, you can't just have rubber lines, you have to have these steel lines in here. So I remember reading through the service manual for my Yanmar diesel. It had a Yanmar diesel too, and for my sailboat I had in Hawaii, I haven't done a lot of diesel before that. I mean, I replaced the head gasket on my excavator, which had a Yanmar in it too. But other than that, I hadn't really done much diesel work. Really, actually, this engine here was the first one I've ever tore down. Actually, I didn't even tear it down. I just put it back together. But when I was looking at the manual, going back to my start, when I was looking at the manual in Hawaii, and I was looking at it, I'm like, man, it's so complicated. There's so many parts. But you know, once you just start taking it apart and putting it together, it seems a lot more complicated than it is. It's really not that bad. You just lie out, and the bolts kind of match. For the flywheel, there's 5, and so you got 5 bolts that look like this. So I just start sorting my bolts to their size, and then you count them, and then you're like, oh, I need 7 bolts. Oh, there's 7 bolts there that are about the right size. They're the right ones. Oh, hey, there's 8 of them. Well, that obviously goes in a different spot. It's really not that hard once you get the hang of it. These screws are kind of interesting, or bolts. They're not screws. They've got a hole in the middle, halfway through, or not halfway through, at the top, and then they go into here, and then they allow the oil to come through that channel and up into here. This guy like this. This guy, I don't know if I can get the tape. I do stuff like this. I like to do it by sense of smell, because you can't see anything. I mean, sense of feel. When I get to this point in the game, and I've had parts strewn out all over the place and don't know what's what, I start organizing them into types. And so then I can figure out what each set of bolts are for as we go on. I think these 4 look like the right ones for the starter bolts. These ones I need 12 of them, and I have 12 of them. This is for the exhaust manifold, and then so some of these are just other mounting bolts. I think these ones for the engine mounts, and then the other ones are just for like the accessories, like the pumps and stuff. Another batch of bolts made shiny again. These are to get the valve cover on, but I just realized I missed one. The most important step, put some oil in it. So this has 2 fillers, so I like to fill it from both. That way it gets as much oil all over the place as possible. Fire in the hole. Let me glow plug it. Well, we kept trying to start it, and it just wouldn't go. Yeah. And usually when a diesel doesn't start, it's almost always the cause of one thing. I mean, it can be anything, but the majority of the times I've seen it, when you have a good working engine, it's because there's air in the lines. And so we were trying, because we had a jury-rigged fuel system, so we were trying all sorts of stuff. And it wasn't until the owner of the shop, he came in, and he was like, well, just put this vacuum pump on the output line and pull the fuel through. So we did that, and a few more times we sucked that air out, and, well, you'll see what happens.
Almost sounded like it wanted to go.
Let's give it a little more flow.
Yeah.
All right, and hold.
There's a new, better future coming for Brian Sailing, but it's come at a cost, and I've been paying that price for a while. But I think it's worth it, and hopefully we'll see a new and better future together. So please like this video, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. We got more stuff to come in. Come on, don't you want to see if this engine runs?
No problem.